Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be exploring something you might not expect. We're going to be talking about basil,
Oh, basil.
but not the leaves, the flowers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basil flowers.
Okay.
And to help us unlock the secrets of these little blooms, we'll be taking a look at this article called Discover the Hidden Wonders of Basil Flower in this guide. It's from 2025 and written by Paul Johnston over at the Herb Prof website. I think you're going to be surprised by what we find out.
I mean, I know I use basil all the time, but I never really think about the flowers. They just kind of, well, they're just there, you know?
Exactly. But I had no idea that these little flowers are actually packed with flavor. So the article says they've got this unique taste that's both sweet and peppery.
Interesting. And that's different from the leaves.
Totally different. So it's
you.
not just like, oh, it's a milder version of the basil leaf.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So if it's got its own distinct flavor, what can we actually do with these flowers?
Well, hold on to your hats, because apparently you can add them to just about anything.
Really? Like what? Give me some examples.
So the article talks about salads
Okay. Yeah.
and pasta dishes,
Interesting.
even herb butters,
Oh, wow.
and get this, garnishes.
Oh, so they're pretty too.
Yeah, they can really elevate a dish visually.
Okay. I'm starting to see some possibilities here.
Right. And we're just getting started. We haven't even talked about how basil flowers can turn your garden into a pollinator paradise.
Yeah, I've heard they're good for attracting bees and butterflies.
Exactly. They're like a magnet for those beneficial insects that keep your garden healthy and thriving.
So it's a win-win. You get pretty flowers, you get delicious flavors, and you get a thriving ecosystem.
It's like nature's little gift that keeps on giving.
All right, I'm sold on the flowers, but I'm curious. Is there anything else that makes them special?
You are not going to believe this. Those tiny little blossoms are nutritional powerhouses.
Hold on, are you serious?
Completely serious. Vitamins, minerals, you name it, they've got it.
Okay, so break it down for me. What kind of nutrients are we talking about?
Well, they've got vitamins A and K,
Mm.
and a bunch of minerals like calcium and magnesium.
Wow, that's impressive for such a small flower.
Right. And that means they can actually contribute to things like bone health.
Because of the calcium.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Anything else? What about the vitamin K?
Well, vitamin K is really important for blood clotting.
Interesting.
It's kind of a big deal.
I never would have guessed that basil flowers had so much going for them.
Me neither. And wait till you hear this. They're also packed with antioxidants.
Antioxidants.
Yep. The same ones that everyone's always talking about.
Ones that fight free radicals.
You got it. So these little flowers are like a secret weapon in the fight against aging and cell damage.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. Pretty flowers, great taste, nutritional powerhouses, and now antioxidants too. What's next?
According to the article, there's even more to discover about basil flowers. They have a long history of being used for medicinal purposes.
Now hold on a minute. Are we talking about like actual medicine?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Cultures around the world have used basil flowers to treat all sorts of ailments for centuries.
Wait, what?
Well, the article mentions things like respiratory problems,
Oh, okay.
digestive issues,
Interesting.
even stress and anxiety.
So are you telling me that these little flowers can help with all that?
Well, it's important to remember that we're talking about traditional uses here, not like scientifically proven medical treatments.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it definitely makes you wonder if there's something to these ancient remedies, right?
For sure. It definitely piques my curiosity.
Mine too. And it turns out modern science is starting to take notice as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's actually some interesting research going on right now looking at the potential of basil flowers for things like heart health and blood sugar management.
Wait, seriously, little basil flowers could be helpful for those kinds of things.
That's what the research is suggesting.
This is incredible. I need to hear more about this.
So we've got these amazing little flowers that taste great, are good for us, and might even have some medicinal benefits. But I'm curious from a culinary standpoint, what are some things you would use basil flowers for?
That's a good question. I think I'd start by experimenting with that basil flower butter we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Doesn't it?
It does. I could also see myself using them as a garnish. You know, just to add a little something extra to a dish.
Like a pop of color
Exactly.
and that unique flavor.
Yeah.
The article also mentioned using them in salads.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right.
Especially with some fresh mozzarella and tomatoes.
Oh, stop. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Me too.
But, okay, enough about food for now. Let's talk about gardening for a bit.
Okay.
So, say I want to grow my own basil flowers. What are some things I need to keep in mind?
Well, the first thing is sunlight.
Okay.
Basil plants need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day.
Got it. 6 hours of sunlight. What about temperature?
Basil prefers warm weather, ideally between 70 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
So if I live in a colder climate, I might need to start my plants indoors.
Exactly. And then you can transplant them outside once the weather warms up.
Okay, that makes sense. What about soil?
Well-drained soil is essential. Basil doesn't like to sit in water.
So make sure the water can drain away easily.
Yeah.
Anything else I should know about soil?
Adding some compost can really help your basil plants thrive.
Compost. Got it. Now, once my plants are all grown up and I've got those beautiful flowers, how do I harvest them?
You want to pinch off the blossoms when they're fully open but before they start to wilt.
Okay. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it encourages the plant to produce even more flowers.
So it's actually good for the plant,
Exactly.
and it helps to maintain the flavor of the leaves.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered the culinary uses and how to grow them, but let's go back to those potential health benefits for a minute. You mentioned that there's some research being done on basil flowers and heart health. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So basil flowers are rich in antioxidants, specifically flavonoids and polyphenols.
And those are good for our hearts.
They can be. You see, inflammation is a major factor in many heart conditions. And these flavonoids and polyphenols can help to reduce inflammation throughout the body.
Including in the heart.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is.
What about blood sugar management? You mentioned that too.
Right. There's some early research suggesting that basil flower extract might be able to help regulate blood sugar levels.
Really?
Yeah, but it's important to note that this is still preliminary research.
Oh,
More studies are needed to confirm these findings.
of course. But it's definitely promising.
It is.
You know, aside from all the scientific stuff, I really love the idea of using basil flowers in a more traditional way.
Oh, how so?
Like brewing them into a tea.
Ah, yes. A nice, calming basil flower tea.
Exactly.
That sounds lovely.
Doesn't it?
It does, especially after a long day.
It's like a little ritual you can do for yourself.
Right, a moment of peace and relaxation.
I think we could all use a little more of that in our lives.
I agree.
Welcome back, everyone, for the final part of our deep dive into basil flowers. We've learned so much about these little blooms, from their surprising flavors to their potential health benefits. But now comes the fun part, figuring out how to actually use this knowledge in our own lives.
Right. It's time to put all this amazing information into action.
Exactly. So what are some ways that you would use basil flowers?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that salad. You know, the one with fresh mozzarella and tomatoes?
Oh, yes.
Just imagine how beautiful that would look with some basil blossoms sprinkled on top.
It would be like a work of art.
It would.
And let's not forget about that basil flower butter. Spread that on some crusty bread.
Oh, my goodness.
It'll be divine.
Divine is the perfect word for it.
Okay, but what about something a little more, I don't know, practical?
Practical.
Yeah, like using basil flowers to benefit our health.
I see.
So, what are some things we could do in that department?
Well, we talked about how basil flowers are traditionally used to make tea. And there's some research suggesting they might have calming and relaxing effects. So maybe we can try incorporating a cup of basil flower tea into our evening routine.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right.
Like a little ritual to help us unwind before bed.
Exactly.
And it's not just about the potential health benefits.
Right.
There's something really soothing about the act of making tea.
It is.
It's like a form of mindfulness.
Absolutely.
So we've got the culinary uses, the health benefits, and even a little mindfulness practice. I think we've covered all our bases.
I think so too.
But before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a little challenge. Choose one thing you learned today about basil flowers and try it out in your own life.
That's a great challenge.
Whether it's adding them to a dish, planting some in your garden, or brewing a cup of tea.
I love it.
And let us know how it goes.
Yeah, share your experiences with us. We'd love to hear from you.
So that's it for our deep dive into basil flowers. Hopefully you've learned some new and surprising things about these little blooms, and maybe you're even feeling inspired to give them a try yourself.
I know I am.
Me too. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy exploring.
See you then.